is awesome. This meeting is being recorded. It is 5:33, and I'd like to welcome you to a special meeting of the Danville Board of Directors, Monday, February 17th, 2025. We're physically present in the Danville School Library, Eric Hewitt and I. Online, I see one other board member for now. We're expecting Molly Gleason as well. Tim, say hello.
Hello.
We have the superintendent also on Zoom recording. Please say hi, Matt.
Hello.
Mike, assistant superintendent as well. Say hello for the record.
Hello.
Say your name. Upper school principal Natalie Conway's here as well.
Hello.
Okay, and then we have, like I say, Molly should be here eminently. She says she's in the waiting room. She says she's in with the chattel.
Well, whatever. Then she's GBCV. Then all right, so that works. I thought she was the. Sorry, Molly. I thought you were the people trying to help out from public TV.
That's her new job. She got a wrong name.
All right, I'm trying to get her in there. It says promote to panelists failed.
Try again.
She's going to have to come back on. I tried to promote her and it said it failed. Then it dropped. Okay, she dropped.
Okay, so let's.
When she pops, I'll put her in.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on and get started here because there's 2 more meetings behind. So at this point, I am. Are there any additions or changes to this agenda? Hearing none. I'm going to go ahead and do public comment now. Is there any public comment?
Nobody attendees.
All right. While I'm waiting, okay. The business that we have for tonight is to approve, is to talk about and approve the 2024 through 2026 support staff contract. We're hoping to ratify that tonight. Matt's got some specific language if we get to that point for ratification. Dave Toll is specifically abstaining. I have a document from him indicating why he's abstaining, which I'll have Molly add to the minutes. He's a relative that is in this bargaining unit, and it would give the appearance of impropriety if he were in here listening or giving his opinions on things, basically. I have the document that I'll hand over to Molly on that. I sent a video around. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it. I did an explainer for CCSD. I have it's a very extensive contract change, and I have some highlights that I can share with you. I thought I brought them, and somehow I didn't bring them. So if you just bear with me for a second, I will find them again. And I'm going to, Matt, can you put the, you know what? Just let me share my screen, I guess.
Yep. Okay. I'm looking for the language while you're doing that.
Okay, you do that, and then I will go to Zoom, and I will share my screen, and I will share a window of my screen, and I will share this one, and I will share this. And now it says I'm screen sharing, and I want to switch to this one. Can you see? What do you see when I put that up? Do you see an email?
Yep.
Okay, now you see me again? Now you see an email?
You're good, yep.
Okay. So the support staff contract was a long and lengthy process, and it lasted through 2 superintendents, 2 sets of ideas, and 2 sets of HR directors, and some wrong information. But we started off with the goal of having 1 contract, 1 set of rights, 1 salary scale for the 5 districts and the 7 schools. And what we had previously going into this was 2 distinct and different salary scales at different numbers, and we had also basically 2 different sets of rights that were stapled together and intersposed in spots, and so intertwined in spots where they were. And so our primary goals were to have 1 contract by the end of this, have a 3-year contract that we could get through. And one of the goals of us going into it, as well as CCEA going into it, was to raise the wages just across the board, but also real specifically, the Twinfield cabinet wages were extremely low relative to the other wages, but the other wages weren't exactly livable either. And so we were losing staff in Twinfield Cabot to big box stores during the course of the during the course of the hiring process, and we were losing staff further because we couldn't put them on the correct pay scale based on prior experience, because there was nothing in the contract that allowed us to do so. And so, Matt, one of the things that I'm going to have a question about here from Eric that he's already told me is a question that he's going to have come up is the financial ramifications for Danville. Do you have, from the stuff that Mike gave you, a specific breakdown of how this affects Danville in FY24 and then also in FY25 or FY25 and FY20?
I don't have specific dollars, but I can go ahead and I can get those for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this is a thing that we're going to want to look at our next meeting. I think that there's not going to be a situation where we're over budgeted because we have some surplus, but people wanting to know specifics is a very fair question. And so we want to have this in our hands for the next meeting to talk about the financial ramifications of this and how we plan for it and how we need to plan in the future.
Yep.
And so one of the first things that we want to go over, let me see if I have a clean copy of this contract here. So you got 3 copies of the contract over the past week, and you got a copy that was carved up with a bunch of scratch outs on it. Then you got an updated version of that because the numbers were wrong. And then at the very end, you got a clean copy. And so one of the reasons that you got the carved up copy is because we have to memorialize the changes in addition to memorializing and it's to signing off on the new contract. And so some of the major changes as you go through with regard to rights were listed out. A lot of the stuff that was taken out was tense changes, gender specific language. And again, as we tried to make everything the same, a lot of the stuff that got carved out of this contract was twin field caveat specific language. And so as we scroll through it, some of the very top things that you see are where there were his's and hers, there's now theys and theirs. And here in 2.7, one of the first major changes was the union asked, could electronic dues deductions happen more frequently in a check run? And it was a simple process to do. And this just made it contractual that they will no longer be chasing dues every 6 months. They'll be transmitted with their 2 weekly paychecks. And so if you sign off on the warrants, you'll be able to see these things sooner. And they just go through. It's just a separate check run, and there was no problem with payroll. As you continue down in the rights, there's just a lot more of theys and themselves, and as opposed to his's and hers. 3.5 was a big one for them. 3.5, in the event that a paraeducator is assigned the task of personal care, the building will make especially every reasonable effort to make sure that the person doing that isn't in the room alone with the kid. And it was a thing that was happening, and they just want to make sure that there's an opportunity for people to be covered in terms of just being supported and not being stuck in a situation where things could go awry. So we added that to the contract, and we make every reasonable effort there. The grievance procedure was changed to count days differently when we're on vacation versus days differently when we're in school, and it just made it clearer. There was a miscommunication in a grievance last year that in the summer days didn't count, or during holidays days didn't count, and so we count student days as grievance days, and then the summer days are just days. Moving down with procedure, there's a lot more theys and theirs, and there's a lot more, and so then you go through the grievance procedure, which hasn't really changed very much. Nothing in the individual contracts, just a couple of words in this one. When we get down into job descriptions, where we had some of our most substantial changes, there's some full-time employees and there's some part-time employees. And some of the things that the association wanted to talk to us about was we had to create some new contract distinctions and some job descriptions for some very specific employees, and then also a category where we could try to make a paraeducator more of a career to start off with. And I'll get to that in just a minute here. And so as we get down into the employee categories, there are 3 main ones that work in the building. And then there are, as you move forward off of those, you have paraeducator, custodian, and kitchen worker. And those are all column A of the salary scale when we get down to it. And that makes up the bulk of who works here. And so one of the things the association discussed with us and we thought was a good idea was to add in a paraeducator with some additional training that was not quite an intensive needs paraeducator. We used to call it life skills. So there were 2 categories of it. Now there's going to be 3 categories of it. So there's a paraeducator, which happens in column A of the pay scale. There's a health paraeducator who has some additional skills and can work with 501 or 504 or personal care plans. And then there's an intensive needs paraeducator who would work with our most intensive cases. And those are the people who are the hardest to replace with the most training. And they have usually the most years of experience, and they take on the hardest cases. So there are those three things that now exist for paraeducators. There's now a there was always a speech language pathologist assistant that's described here, a speech language pathologist assistant with a national certification now exists, and that'll come in category 4, custodians in category A. One of the things that we all have had a lot of trouble doing across the SU, not so much in Danville, but in the other buildings that have bus drivers, is hiring bus drivers. And so we added in some different ways to hire bus drivers. We can hire bus drivers as bus drivers. We can hire bus drivers who can work as custodians, or we can hire bus drivers, and then we can also hire them separately as paras. And it gives just an opportunity for people who are willing to drive a bus to make this a career for themselves and work in one building at a time. We moved head custodian, head cafeteria worker, and level 2 administrative assistant to a different pay scale on category 3. But we added level 2 administrative assistant specifically to recognize where in some of the buildings, some of the people, some of the administrative assistants have a lot more responsibilities than the other. And this is not a job that has to exist in every building, but it's a job that in some buildings, that one person needs to be recognized more as the lead administrative assistant. And so that job was created as well. Additionally, here I'm missing a couple on this, but I got the wrong one up here. I'm missing a couple on this one here. Let me go back to this clean copy and show you a couple more. I pulled up the wrong one. This is where the stuff wasn't added. And I'm going to go back down here because there are 3 other job descriptions that are listed that pertain to one person. And that is here a health paraeducator certified is a job category that exists for one specific person in the Twinfield school that has some special certifications, and she can be an assistant to the school nurse. Intensive needs paraeducator I talked about used to be life skills, and that other position had been living inside of the envelope of this health needs paraeducator, but has moved out of it and is now identified solely. And the last one is one that came up in Danville specifically. We have a deaf-blind intervener, and this person has taken a great deal of extra training to administer to the needs of a deaf-blind student. And there was an arrangement made with the previous superintendent that the school would pay for that training, and the person would be on a different pay scale. And so we had to create an entire new category for that. It's one person, one set of skills, one opportunity, and it only can exist if there is a need for a deaf-blind intervener. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to skip a couple things. I'm going to go down to the pay scale, and I want to show you that how everybody lands on this pay scale. And what I need specifically here, forgive the scrolling. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where's that box? Where's that box? Bear with me, folks.
In the appendix.
Is it? I'm going to put that box.
Yeah.
It is in the appendix. I've lost the box. Okay, here we go. So this is the pay scale. So here is the grid. Again, deaf-blind intervener is category B. When somebody looks at this and they have a question about category column E, they have a question about column E. This pertains to one person in one building that does deaf-blind stuff. So this is not something that you jump columns on this. There is the possibility now, as discussed, to be a paraeducator in line A, take some training that we can offer or that we can encourage and become a line B. And the idea for this here is pretty simple, that if you are a motivated person that comes in and starts working, that you can move over a column for this and eventually maybe become, in a couple of years, an intensive needs paraeducator if you continue to train yourself. And as you can see, A, B, and C will make up the majority of our workforce: paraeducator, custodian, and cafeteria worker. And in 2024, 2025, this year, we landed at 1850 for them. And they talked about some of the numbers, and they had to meet us in the middle on this number to keep it a little bit lower for the year because it's more than we had budgeted. We'd gotten up in our negotiations close to about 18. And so this became a little bit more. And as you can see, this is a massively simplified pay scale. There are no longer 10 different sets of data to look at. And the last change that came through when you saw two different sets of numbers, when it had, we moved over custodian, driver, head custodian, head cafeteria worker to column C, so that all the bus drivers were paid at the same level. And column D, intensive needs paraeducator, health paraeducator certified is one person, and certified speech language pathologist, that's a few people if they have a special certification and they can be more useful. So in 2024-25, it's 1850 and across to 1955, and it goes up some number of cents for years of experience. And above 15, you're off the grid, and so you get paid. You got your raise was a percentage, 3.25% if you were off this grid. And so these numbers over here are only relevant to one person, but she's over there. In the next year, the number that they had been looking for, the number that they'd come to the CCSU multiple times and asked about, was getting to $20. And so we were holding up on $20. And this is the thing that sent us to impasse, and the thing that eventually sent us almost into fact finding after mediation didn't work. And it became pretty apparent at the first of the year when the minimum wage went up that we probably didn't have a lot of ground under our feet to hold where we were. And so we ended up agreeing to their deal before going and spending a bunch of money on fact finding. And so in the second year, they're going to get to $20. And so $20, and then the field goes this way. And then across from there, in year 3, 2026, 2027, it goes up to $21. And so you see, these are the salaries that are here across the board for year 3. And this is about a 5% increase from year 2 to year 3, but it ends up being about 4% new money. And this is what I don't have for you today is the money impact over the 3 years that we'll get pretty soon. Now, as I go back up, there's a couple of other things that I think are noteworthy to make clear. Is that one of the things that happened is we offered an additional personal day, but we also, it was offered by CCEA that if an employee does not use all of their personal days at the end of the year, instead of them dissolving or instead of them going away, they have the opportunity to sell them back to us at $50 each, so that we're not chasing for subs at the end of the year and they're not motivated to take the day off or lose the benefit. So adding in that, the idea was cheaper than a sub, and it seemed like a good idea, and we agreed to it. For us, there's no change in benefits. Twinfield Cabot also added for each of their employees single payer dental, long-term health insurance, and long-term care insurance. Those 3 things came up in the list of demands because we had talked about trying to convert those for CCSU to cash to see if we could get to their numbers. And they rebuked that suggestion, and we took it back off the board. But that was one of the 3 demands that they came to the CCSU with. They felt slighted by the question when they came in. Another thing that that I want to tell you is when we put in the last contract, we added in what I call an escalator for when a paraeducator was willing to step forward and be a substitute in the building. We added a rate of pay for that, where they would get $15 for a half day or $30 for a full day to step in and be the sub for the sake of continuity in the building, to make it easier for us to find subs, just motivating the idea that they would have initiative. They asked, could we do something similar with paraeducators? So now we have the same sort of an escalator, where if you are a para 2 and you're moving to be a para 4, then or a para 3, if you're a health para and you need to move up to be a life skills para for the day, there is a financial benefit to you to do so, to make it easier to find volunteers to do so. So if you're a para and you're being asked to move into a health para, there's an idea that you can have an idea that you can do it. But now what that means is you can't just ask paras to take a double jump. So you have to just be careful what you're doing there, and you have to train people to be health paras to move on. Probably the most important thing to note here is that this contract encompasses this year. And this contract encompassing this year means we owe these people money right now. And so when we get this passed through and we see that we're going to have to run check runs, and we're going to have to get through this process to get everybody paid right, there is part of the agreement is we don't know for sure who all is going to be an administrative assistant 2 or a paraeducator 2. And so we are very, very hopeful that if those people come forward before the end of the year, that we'll have to do a second check run. And there's an understanding that some people may have to have their pay adjusted 2 times if it turns out that they fit into one of these new higher categories. And that's where I am. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Are there questions? Other than, I know Eric's got a very legitimate question. How does this what are the financial ramifications here? And I don't have it. I have an idea of it, but I don't have it. And so the new money, the new money numbers, let me just go back to them real quick. They're not going to pertain building to building. This is not going to be consistent building to building, but it was 9.6. Where did it go? Come down this way.
Yeah, it depends on what our mix is, you know. So
So I'm going to go down to just to show you these numbers. Let me see if I can find them. No, I had them. I had them. I have them. I have them on here somewhere. Give me a second. So 9.65 and 6.12 in the second year and 4.59 in year 3. But this is not the same building to building. And we'll bring to the next meeting, we'll have finance bring the financial ramifications of this to the reorganizational meeting. But for right now, I'm recommending that you ratify this agreement.
Clayton, I had a quick question, hopefully quick question.
Please, Molly.
Sick days are paid, is that correct?
Yeah. Do they currently get paid sick days?
Is
that the question?
In this document, I saw somewhere that there's a maximum of like 115 sick days. I was just curious if those are all paid sick days.
Yeah, so they get paid sick days. You can earn 15 sick days a year, and you can accrue up to 115 sick days.
And those carry over year to year.
You can. That's the max out number, 115.
Okay.
And so if you walk into a year with 115 sick days and you get 15 more sick days, you don't get any more sick days. You can donate 3 to the sick bank, but you can't go up to 130 in that year unless you're sick. And so for a lot of veteran people, that matters in case they have some long-term situation.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's pre-existing. That's not in this negotiation.
Yeah.
That's a long-standing thing.
I'm happy to make a motion to ratify.
Okay, can you read what's in the chat?
I can try. I'm going to make a motion to move to ratification and acceptance of the tentative agreement and draft master agreement subject to final editing, revisions, and approval of the superintendent. The chair is authorized to sign the final agreement on behalf of the board.
All right. So Tim has made that motion. This listed there. Molly, you want to take a picture of that? You want to take a picture of that? I'm going to take a picture of that screen.
just copy it, email it to me.
Or Mac can email it to her, I guess.
I can send it.
Molly. So I have a motion on the table.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for this. And I have a motion and a second to ratify this agreement, this tentative agreement and draft master agreement. Are there any further questions? If not, I'll call the question. And I'm going to go ahead and poll the room. Tim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Molly, how do you vote?
Aye.
Eric, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay. So that motion carries. Dave Toll abstains. And that motion carries 3-0. And that's it. So I appreciate your time. I got to go to the PICHA meeting and do the same thing again with the same sort of explanation. So thanks everybody for their availability here. And
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn in a second. All right, great.
Thank you.
5:57, we're out. We're going to go to the PICHA meeting. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank